My friend and I were supposed to go to a music festival one weekend. We had been planning it for weeks. I packed the car, loaded the cooler, brought a tent, everything. We were literally sitting in the car about to pull out when we got an email saying the whole thing was canceled. Weather, apparently. I don't even remember the excuse. But we were already packed and ready to go, and neither of us wanted to spend the weekend sulking at home. So we just decided to drive. No destination, just figure it out as we went. After a couple of hours of heading north, we stumbled into this small resort town near a lake. Kind of a summer vacation spot, but it was late in the season, mid-September, so it was mostly shut down. That actually appealed to us. It was quiet, no kids running around, just trees, water, and peace. There was a small campground near the lake. We'd figured it'd be cheap and easy. When we pulled in, there was only one guy working the booth, an older dude, maybe in his 50s, a beard, real small town vibe. He was friendly, but definitely had that weird small town vibe energy going on. Not in a threatening way, just weird. He gave us a site all the way at the end of the campground, like past every other site, right against the woods, pretty much in total isolation. No one else was in the whole place. We kind of joked that maybe he just wanted to put the city kids as far from everyone else as possible, which was fine by us. We did not want to bother anyone else anyway. We were just there to drink, chill, maybe smoke a little, and just reset. We set up camp, cracked a few beers, and walked down to the lake. It was nice, quiet, no cell phone service, but we did not care about that. We made some food in the little fire pit, then climbed into the tent around 10 or 11. It was cold, but we had layers with us. We turned off the lantern, zipped up the tent, and just laid there. That's when we heard it. At first, I didn't register what it was. It was faint, off to the left of our site, maybe 100 yards into the dark, where the woods start. But the sound was sharp, long, slow scraping, metal on stone. It didn't sound accidental, like someone tripping over gear or messing with a fire pit. It was deliberate. It was deliberate in the sense like someone was sharpening a blade over and over. No talking, no footsteps, just that slow scraping noise. I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of funny at first. I joked that the weird old attendant was probably just trying to scare us, playing into the whole spooky woods thing. But my friend wasn't laughing. She was dead quiet. I could feel her holding her breath. She whispered that we would have heard footsteps if someone came out that far. And she was right. The leaves were dry. We would have heard them crunching. But we did not hear anyone come. Just that scraping. She took out her phone and somehow had just enough signal to make a single call and rang the campground office. The guy picked up. She asked if he'd been walking around the sites tonight. He said no. Then she asked if there was anyone else staying at the campground. He said no again. He told us the place was empty, except for us. While she was still on the phone, I stepped out of the tent. The sound was still going on. It was far enough that I couldn't see anything, but close enough to know that it was there. I couldn't see any flashlight beams. I couldn't hear any other movement. Just darkness and that metal scraping. Well, we decided to pack everything valuable into the car and sleep in the front seats. I had a can of bear spray I'd bought on a whim the year before and kept it in my lap. She eventually fell asleep, but I didn't. I didn't because that sound kept going for hours. Sometimes it would pause for a few minutes, like whoever was doing it was just sitting there. Then it would start up again, slow and steady, I kept staring out into the dark through the windshield, trying to catch anything moving, but I didn't see anything. Sometime around 5 a.m., it stopped. Not suddenly, just gradually. The scraping got quieter, like it was getting further and further away, and then it was gone. While I waited, still gripping the bear spray, until the sky started to lighten up officially. When we got out, there was no sign anyone had been there. I walked out toward where the sound came from, and it was just empty campsites. There were no boot prints, no disturbed fire rings, nothing. The ground was covered in leaves, so maybe that covered up the tracks, but it still felt weird, like nothing had ever been there. We packed up without saying much. We stopped at a diner about an hour away, and I think that's when it hit me how bizarre the whole thing was. My friend kept asking why someone would do that. If it was a joke, it did not make any sense. Nobody revealed themselves. There was no payoff for it. If it wasn't a joke, then what the heck was it? I still do not have an answer. So I went camping with a few people I did not know very well, and one of them turned out to be someone I will never camp with again. So this trip was planned by my girlfriend and me, along with one of her friends from work. That friend brought two guys I had never met before. They seemed fine at first. There was nothing weird about them. But right when we started setting up the tents, one of the guys, I'll call him Tyler, suddenly insisted that he couldn't share a tent with anyone. He claimed he sleepwalks and did not want to freak anyone out. Thing is, we had already decided that Tyler would share a tent with the other guy he came with, and my girlfriend and I would share the other one. But now, last minute, we had to figure out a new plan. It ended with some weird setup where my girlfriend and I ended up crammed in a tent with the other guy, basically a stranger, just so Tyler could have one to himself. I did not love it, but we did not want to start the trip with drama, so we just let it go. That night, around 2 a.m. or so, I was woken up by my girlfriend shaking me. She whispered, "Tyler's freaking me out." I sat up and looked out the tent flap. Tyler was outside, walking in slow circles around the fire pit. He wasn't saying anything, just pacing, like he was looking for something. My first thought was, okay, he said he sleepwalks. Maybe this is just that. So I told my girlfriend that's probably what it was, and we just need to keep an eye on him. But then, out of nowhere, he stops pacing, stands perfectly still, and starts yelling, "Hello?" at the top of his lungs. Not like a panicked yell, more like someone shouting to get attention. Loud, drawn out, over and over again. Just, "Hello? Hello?" Like he was waiting for something to yell back. At this point, everyone else in the tent was awake, and we were all just kind of frozen, watching him. It felt weird. I've been around people sleepwalking before, and this did not look like that. Something about the way he was standing, the way he was yelling, it did not sit right with me. Then he turns to face the woods, points into the dark, and yells, "Hello?" again. Except this time, he's holding a gun, a pistol. I hadn't even known he brought one. He was pointing it into the trees, not at us, but still. He was holding it with both hands, steady, like he was ready to shoot. I had my own firearm with me, licensed and locked up in my bag, so I quietly reached over and grabbed it because my actual thought was, he's going to sleep shoot us. But he didn't shoot. He held the gun out like that for maybe 10 seconds, then just calmly walked back to the tent, placed the gun on top of his sleeping bag, and lay down. Like, completely casual. Didn't say a word. Out cold in seconds. Trust me when I say, none of us slept the rest of the night. In the morning, I didn't sugarcoat it. I asked him straight up, "What the hell were you doing last night?" He looked at me like I was being the dramatic one and said he thought he heard coyotes. Then he claimed that he didn't want to wake anyone up, so he figured he'd check it out himself with a loaded gun at 2 in the morning, screaming into the woods. I asked if he was sleepwalking or awake. He said awake, swore he was just being cautious. Well, I did not push it. I did not want to argue in the middle of nowhere. But I decided right then and there that I was never going camping with him again. And get this, a couple of years later, I was proven right. A friend texted me a news story from upstate. Apparently some guy had caused a total panic at a public campground. He had been running through the woods, firing his gun, and scaring families out of their tents. When the cops showed up, he told them he was tracking Bigfoot. Guess who it was? Tyler. I have no idea what he's up to now, but if someone ever invites me camping and says, "Tyler's coming," that's an automatic no. This happened when I was about 13. It was a school-organized weekend canoeing trip with my class, and we camped overnight at a park somewhere in northern Ontario. The area was secluded, but there were designated group sites, and we were definitely not the only people camping there. A few other school groups were nearby, but not super close. Like, we could hear voices faintly in the evening if everyone was quiet, but that was it. There were 4 kids to a tent. All the tents were lined up in rows, maybe 10 meters apart. Teachers had their own tents near the fire pit. It was a full day of paddling, games, hiking, all that good stuff. We were wiped by nightfall. I fell asleep easily. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up. I had no idea what time it was. I just remember it was really cold and quiet, and I had that sudden awareness that something was wrong. I did not sit up. I just laid there blinking and listening. Then I heard footsteps. Not heavy ones, very fast and light, almost like quick tapping. It circled our tent. At first I thought maybe it was an animal, but it was clearly 2 feet, not 4. No shuffling, no thudding, just sharp, quick steps on dirt and gravel. The breathing is what really got me. It did not sound like someone exercising or running for fun. It sounded like whoever it was trying hard not to break down. That quiet, controlled wheezing you do when you're trying to hold in crying. The kind of breathing that makes your throat tight. Like someone was freaking out silently and trying to stay together. Well, it did not speak. It did not touch the tents. It did not stop running. It would pass our tent, loop around the fire pit, then run back. The pace was panicked. Just this small, quick person running in circles around our camp, breathing like they were about to lose it. I remember lying there stiff as a board. I did not want to look out. I couldn't even move. I just watched the top of the tent in the dark and listened. The weirdest part was how fast it was moving. Not sprinting, but faster than I think most adults could run barefoot on gravel without tripping. After a couple of minutes of circling, the sound of the footsteps started to drift away. I could tell it was still running, just leaving the camp now. The breathing faded too. Not like it stopped, just like it was getting further away until I couldn't hear anything anymore. Everything went still again. Eventually, I turned on my side. That's when I saw one of the girls I was sharing the tent with. She was already awake, lying on her side and staring straight at me. Her eyes were wide open, not blinking, literally just looking at me. I whispered, "You heard that too?" She gave one slow nod and then rolled over, facing away from me. I stayed up another hour or so, just listening for anything else. There was nothing. I must have drifted off at some point, because the next thing I remember was waking up to the daylight and kids outside laughing like it was just another morning. At breakfast, I tried to bring it up. I kept it casual, like, did anyone hear someone running around last night? But no one reacted. Even the girl I shared that moment with acted confused, like she had no clue what I was talking about. I pressed a bit and reminded her that we locked eyes. I asked her straight up if she remembered being awake. She said I must have dreamt it. She seemed uncomfortable. When I mentioned it to our teacher, she smirked and said something like, "Maybe we should check your pockets for ghost stories." And everyone laughed at me. I shut up after that. I knew what I heard. I wasn't sleeping. I don't sleepwalk. I don't dream like that either. It's now been over a decade, and I still don't know what it was. It wasn't a bear or a coyote. It didn't sound like a prank. Who would do that kind of prank without ever making a sound, or breaking character, or coming back to brag about it? There was no footsteps in the morning either. The dirt around the tents looked undisturbed. That bugged me out a lot. I still think about that breathing. It wasn't normal. It sounded young, like a small person, or even a kid. But all of us were at least in our teens at that time. There weren't any little kids on that trip. It didn't feel human, even though logically I know it probably was. But I've never heard anyone breathe like that again. If anyone else has experienced something similar, or has a theory, I'd honestly like to know. Because it felt real. It was real. But it left nothing behind. Just me lying there, listening to someone run around like they were scared to death, and then disappearing into the woods.